okay, this relationship is maybe feeling a little bit weird between him and his ex, but I'm trying to not be this. I'm not going to make a big deal out of it. I don't want to come across as crazy or jealous or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, I'll be the cool girlfriend who doesn't care. I'll be easygoing, blah, 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 blah. What happened between that time and then the time that you showed up on our doorstep saying, Brittany, help me?
Yeah.
Where would you take your life if you knew you could not fail? I get it. As a stepmom, mom, and entrepreneur, sometimes it can feel like what everyone else expects of you versus what you dream about for yourself are on opposite ends of the spectrum. As a woman, you're taught from a very young age what society thinks you're worth based on how you look, how you behave, and how much money you're allowed to bring in. But I'm here to show you that you can be the woman who has it all, and not just on the outside. I'm Brittany Lynch, and you are the queen of your castle.
Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to another episode of the Queen of Your Castle podcast. I am your host, Brittany Lynch, and I'm super excited to have a super special guest on the show today, Lisa May Harrison, one of our friends, one of our sisters, one of our members of the Stepmom Story, is here to speak to you about her experience as a stepmom. You know, we have all types of guests on this show. A lot of the times it's just me blabbing about you know what, but the real reason that I sit in this chair and I record this podcast week after week after week is for the people who are listening to this show. And sometimes it is nice to hear from somebody who has been in your shoes, maybe not that long ago, who has some words of wisdom to share, who has a story that you can relate to, who has been through some shit and lived to tell the tale. So Lisa May, thank you for being one of those voices. Thank you for being one of those listeners of the show who is now a guest on the show. What a cool full circle moment, because that's where it all began for us. So yeah, thanks for being here. And go ahead and let us know, who is Lisa May? Who are you? Where are you from? Who's a part of your step family? Where do you live? How old are your stepkids? All that good stuff.
Yeah. You're right. Holy shit. Full circle. Yeah, I am, I live in Alaska. I've lived here for 6 years. I am a believer in happily ever afters, although, sometimes it feels like a long shot. So, but I am perennial in like my pursuit to understand and grasp the concept of being content. Or just contentment. And I am a stepmom. I have 2 stepchildren. They are 5 and 7. And I recently got married. And yeah, that's kind of it. That's me.
Mm. Tell me more about this contentment that you are passionately, fearlessly in pursuit of. What does contentment mean to you?
Just content, being in this life, in this blended family, being content, just not worrying, not feeling stress or fear or anxiety, or feeling like, I'm living, at the mercy of someone else, just really not feeling any of that, just feeling really content every day. I mean, yeah, the pursuit is real. It is my ultimate goal.
Mm-hmm. Arguably, I think probably every stepmom listening to this and not listening to this show has struggled with that feeling, like our lives are kind of at the mercy of other people and at the hands of other people. Before we get into, why this pursuit of contentment rose up for you, why you began this pursuit, I want to zip back in time a little bit, and I want to get just a little bit of a picture of what it used to be like for you. In other words, specifically, when you fell in love with your now husband, if you're like most of us, then you probably had this idea, this ideal vision about what it was going to be like to fall in love with Prince Charming and live happily ever after. And there's usually the what we think it's going to be like, and then there is the what it actually turns out to be. So if you can zip us back into time to when you first met him and you guys first fell in love, what were sort of your expectations as far as what you thought it was going to be like to be in a relationship with a man who had kids and had an ex-wife? What were those expectations? What were those dreams? What was that fantasy like for you?
Yes. Great question. I really, okay, with him, I have to say, I really don't remember having any expectations, but I will tell you that at some point in my life before I met my husband, I remember this one time I have this thought in my mind, oh gosh, that if I ever met a man who had kids, that it would be perfect, because I wasn't really confident if I ever wanted to be a mom. But I always knew I'd be a really good parent. So I guess the scenario I have in my head appealed to me, because thought I would have the best of both worlds. Like just this random thought. I remember it went through my mind one time. And then, fast forward to I meet my husband, and we start chatting, and he tells me, he is like freshly divorced. Red flag? No, not for me. No way. I was just like, cool, he's free. And he's got 2 kids, and he talked so much about them, and all these things he loved about them and their little personalities, and they were so young. I really want to say that going back to those expectations and stuff, or what I thought it was going to look like, I really didn't even think about it. I was so in la la land with him, and really was just kind of going with the flow, like all red flags, like put my blinders on, like there was nothing. But it really didn't take long for me to really kind of start seeing those red flags. In the beginning I didn't, but it didn't take long. And then I think I really just kind of moved past it and thought that, and built my expectations at that point, and thought, I'm just going to be so easygoing, and I'm going to be so understanding, and everybody loves me. So if I can just win her over and just have, the chance to have a conversation with the ex, like everything's going to be okay. She's going to love me.
Da, da, da.
Just kidding.
We laugh because it's just so relatable. I have, as you say this, I have a very similar story, a very similar memory of, what I thought it was going to be like with my husband's ex-wife. I thought we were gonna be besties and like go to Vegas together and have coffee on Sundays. And I thought that would, and I had the same thing, right? Like she'll meet me and she'll love me. I'm fun. I'm this, I'm that, whatever. I'll be great to her son, blah, 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 blah. But, and yeah.
Right. Exactly. Like I respect your space. Like, no.
Yeah. So you spoke about, red flags a couple of times. And I mean, I don't want to go down a path of like pointing out people's pain or making a thing out of places that people have to heal. But I think that for a lot of us, there are a lot of similarities in our partners when we first get into a relationship with them that many of us choose to turn a blind eye to, because so many of us stepmoms, I'm convinced that the reason that we stick around for this stepmom BS, especially in the beginning, is because we find this kind of love that we didn't actually think existed. We're willing to look past a lot of this stuff because the love that we find with our partners is just, it's magical. It's worth looking past these things for. So not out of any like slanderous or judgmental place, I ask this question, but purely from a place of like relatability and kind of validating the fact that we do look past these sorts of things. Could you identify like one or two of these red flag things that you in retrospect were like, yeah, I was totally turning a blind eye to that, and maybe that needed a little bit more attention than I was willing to give it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I guess I gotta say the first thing when it really, those everything was being ignored in retrospect, I can kind of see where maybe things should have been redone or done a little bit differently. But when it really became apparent to me was yeah, I guess I know you're right. It is kind of hard, like, well, do I say that? My husband, just boyfriend at the time, would have these long, drawn out conversations with his ex, and they would go on for hours. A couple hours at a time. We'd be sitting on the couch watching a movie, spending our evening together, and he'd be in this like text store with her. And the calls were nonstop. She, always, needed him for something. So it was just kind of like, it just really started to feel, maybe I didn't really know at the time, but it just started to feel like maybe there's some like unfinished business here. Like maybe there hasn't been any closure. Like, clearly there was a lot to be discussed. And I really kind of had to just like sit there or I didn't have to, but at the time, I was like, I would just sit there, just deal with it. And yeah, it was no bueno.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. This is something that comes up for a lot of stepmoms as well, is this question of like, how much contact is acceptable between our spouses and the ex? Like, how much contact is like normal? What is that supposed to look like? What are those boundaries supposed to look like? And when you're just establishing your new relationship dynamic, those things are really hard to establish and really hard to know. So we won't pull necessarily any more at that, but I'm curious, what was the continuation of your story? Obviously, now you guys are married, things worked out to be okay, but there was a period of time in between there, specifically like when you showed up on our virtual doorstep and said, help me. What was kind of your story? What was your story in between there? These like, okay, this relationship is maybe feeling a little bit weird between him and his ex, but I'm trying to not be this. I'm not going to make a big deal out of it. I don't want to come across as crazy or jealous or whatever. Yeah. Like I'll be the cool girlfriend who doesn't care. I'll be easygoing, blah, 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 blah. What happened between that time and then the time that you showed up on our doorstep saying, Brittany, help me?
Yeah. Help me, please. Well, as I'm like thinking about that, I think it's fair to mention, really, so it makes sense. My husband had, they had a relationship where they were, however you want to call it, maybe call it co-parenting in the same house, for a year while they were going through their divorce. the divorce finalized, and he met me a couple months later. So it was out one door into the other. So understandably, unfortunately for me, but understandably, there was a lot unsaid, unfinished, no closure. It was literally out one door into the other. And to no fault of my husband. I mean, he was living in that situation miserably for a year, and finally was able to get out and explore new things. And we met, and we didn't intend to feel the way we did, and, to go as far as we did. And it happened really fast. And it was just like, that was it. There wasn't anything else. We were gonna, or at least I thought we were going to continue that road. But they had a moment of difficulty. He started living with me, and that was a huge problem. And then we bought the house we live in now, and that presented a whole new set of problems. We were now able to have, he was now able to have, his part of custody of the children. We're 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off. And I remember we had them for 2 weeks, and, it was really, really difficult. But prior to that, we'd only been able to see them, or he had been able to see them, maybe on a Sunday or something every other week, or every, just only a couple days. So we had them for 2 weeks, and it was just a really intense 2 weeks. By week 2, you set up your routine, and then they have to go back. And this is the first time ever. We had never, ever experienced the 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off. And so it was really just a huge turning point for him. I think at that point, it became very real. I am now going to lose half of my children's upbringing, their life. And, he went through this really dark phase, and his ex-wife, and again, this is really no intent to slander. This is just really my point of view, being on the outside looking in. I think that it was an opportunity for her to, maybe perhaps take advantage of the situation. I think, how do I say this? With all due respect, there are some manipulation tactics. And so, husband, he went back, or thought he was going to go back to that, failed relationship, because he couldn't see any other way around it. He couldn't be without his kids. So that was very short-lived, only a few days. And then it was devastating, going through that decision. I remember every single day for a few weeks, him going back and forth. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what's right. I can't be without my kids. There's no future, without them. It was just, it was awful, awful. So then the 3 days or few days, and then, he just called me one morning, and he's like, I can't do this. Like, this is not for me. I will never, ever, I don't love that person. I never will. And I made a mistake. This isn't for me. So Q2, where we really started to really work on a relationship that had really only just begun, so it was extremely difficult. And there was boundary issues even after him and I got back together and started getting on a normal schedule with the kids. So, I felt really in a place where I really just didn't have anyone to talk to. I didn't understand how to make any of it work. I didn't understand anything of what I felt. nothing. And I was desperate, really desperate for some support. You know, I knew I didn't want to leave. I knew that, you know, a lot of people wouldn't understand why I was still here in this relationship, you know, and that's okay. But I knew. And yeah, it's difficult. So I started looking for, I go on Instagram and I looked up the hashtag stepmom. And I was like, just looking through all the tags. I'm like, all right, what can I find? I need something. And I came across this, you know, coach and someone who was offering counseling. And I ended up, you know, getting into it. And it was really just a place where I could vent. And as good as it felt to get it out in the moment, you know, it never left me, you know, feeling good at all. And then I would get these worksheets of, you know, how to work through the triggers and stuff. But what I really needed was the why, you know, the why and everything. Why do I feel the way I do? Why does this happen? Why does that happen? Like, why, you know, just really needed support in the why. So yeah, so then that coach suggested I listen to the Queen of Your Castle podcast. And, you know, this is really like something important that, you know, stood out to me was every single time that I did listen to the podcast, it almost became uncanny at how many times the content was in direct relation to something that I needed to hear, something that I was thinking or actually going through. And so that's how that happened.
You mean this podcast? You mean this
Yeah.
podcast that you're talking about right now?
One right here. Oh, fangirl.
I found myself getting goosebumps like quite a few times through that story, for many reasons. And the thought that has been like coming through this whole time is just like how I want to wrap everybody in this situation in the past in like this big blanket of compassion, because what a messy and ugly and painful and vulnerable place for everybody to be in. And obviously I'm on team stepmom, right? Obviously I'm always have got the big foam fingers saying number one stepmom. That's always the side that I see first. But also this is a fear of so many of us is, you know, is my partner going to go back to their ex? Do they still love their ex? Will they leave me for their ex? And there's so many stories that stepmoms can create about that. And it is because it does happen. It does happen all of the time. Our partners do go back to their exes all of the time. And sometimes that works out and sometimes that doesn't work out. And that's really neither here nor there. But I do want to like thank you for being courageous enough to share that part of your story, because, you know, like I shared in our group a couple of weeks ago, there's a lot of shame around relationships ending and around relationships not working out. And so if a relationship didn't work out, for example, between stepmom and her partner, because her partner went back to the ex, there would be a lot of shame around that of like, I'm not good enough. I did something wrong. Like, what did I do? What could I have done differently? What is it about me? What does she have that I don't have? All of this, all of your biggest insecurities essentially laid on a silver platter for you to sit there and stare at with a magnifying glass.
Yeah, it definitely came with a set of, you know, huge, massive trauma. I mean, it was trauma, right? So it just came, you know, now all of a sudden this really, you know, new relationship turned into, instead of like pause, okay, now let's move forward. It was like, oh, pause. oh, now we're back together, and this huge set of trauma and triggers and stuff now need to be worked through.
Sure. There was something else too that you said about how nobody else really gets it. And I also wanted to pause there and just reflect on that for a second, because I think a lot of the time, as people who are coupled with people who have kids, AKA stepmoms, a lot of the time our friends and our family mean really well, and they try to give us advice that's like on, obviously, like your friends and family are on team Lisa, my friends and family are on team Brittany, so they're always going to be like, well, you should do this thing, right? But the problem is that when we get advice from friends and family, especially if those friends and family aren't stepmoms, like you said, it doesn't have to make sense to them why you chose to continue this relationship. The fact was that you were going to choose that relationship. And so I can't tell you how many times I've heard from people saying, my friends and family say I should just like give up on this relationship. I should just move on. Like, is this going to be worth it? Why am I putting in so much work into this thing? Like, this ex is never going to go away, and these kids are never going to go away. And like, why don't I just make it easy for myself and find somebody who doesn't have kids? And
oh gosh.
And yeah. I'm wondering if that advice ever came to you from when you said like you didn't really have any support to lean into. I'm wondering if that fell into that, under that umbrella at all for you.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, I bless my family's heart. Really just, my sisters and stuff, I love them so much. And we really all just look out for each other and stuff. But I remember, one of my sisters saying one time, I can't remember the exact example she used, but I want to say it was something to the extent of, Vin Diesel could walk into my life and I would never, ever put in this amount of work to be with him. Those like, well, okay. Okay, I hear what you're saying,
That's such a millennial. That's such a millennial crush. Also, such a Vin Diesel millennial crush to have. Like, oh yeah, that's a good one.
I'm like, yeah. I don't know. I might put in some heavy work for Vin Diesel. Like, that's, I don't know. But, but I get it. It really kind of stuck with, obviously, it really stuck with me and stuff. But, I think that they would feel that way, even if, our traumatic past hadn't happened, even if it was simply just, we met, I'm now a stepmom. I think that, they'd have the same opinion no matter what. Why would you just go choose someone else? Go be with somebody else. Like, why put this amount of work into one relationship? Like, that is just so stressful. Mm-hmm. I hear you. I hear him. I know. I do. But, that's really, I would really just be running from myself if I left this and decided, you know what, I'm gonna go be alone, or I'm gonna go find someone who I can be nuclear with, and there's no no past marriages or children. But we compound our suffering by looking too closely at the thing that causes us pain. So it's really just a series of choices. I choose not to run from myself. I choose again and again and again.
Mm-hmm. Everyone listening, that was a mic drop moment. So reverse, back up 30 seconds and write that down. Make that your screensaver, write it on your bathroom mirror. Lisa Mae Harrison with the mic drop. That's all for us, ladies and gentlemen. No, I'm just kidding. We've got lots more to talk about.
Adios. And that's a wrap.
what I do want to do, what I would like to fast forward to now is like, obviously, you know, like you said, there's now all of this existing kind of trauma and triggers and stuff around. It's not like, oh, we got back together and then lived happily ever after. It was like, we got back together and then the real work began. Right. And then thankfully you and I ended up connecting, and then you ended up joining the story, joining your stepmom story, our community, and you've put in a ton of work, I know, in there and in other avenues of your life to get to where you are today. So if you could give us just a super quick snapshot of what you have done, the energy that you have invested in yourself so that you didn't have to keep running from yourself. What does that look like? What did that look like? And what is life like for you now, in contrast, since making all of those energetic investments into yourself and your well-being and your healing and your onion peeling?
Well, I gotta start off by saying the onion is like, it's never ending. It's still peeling. It's a series of trials and tribulations to this day, but I'm trying to, really get to a place, not only of contentment, but really accepting that where there's heartbreak, there's redemption. We, have a really strong connection and stuff. So, where I really, I guess, worked on protecting my own energy is just really exploring the deeper parts of myself, really asking those questions of like, why does this bother me? Where is this coming from? I think that's huge. And any moment that makes you feel really uncomfortable and makes you just upset or angry, ask yourself why. And that's something that I learned, being in, part of the story, that I otherwise would have never known to ask those questions. It took me a really long time to truly, understand what it meant to figure out what I do want instead of focusing on what I don't want. I know that was one of the questions that was asked so many times, like, what is it that you want and how will you know when you get there? And I'm just like, I don't fucking know. Like, nobody's, like, how many people really actually sit there and like think about that? I mean, gosh, it took me months to figure out what that meant. And I'm like, just getting there. So, boundaries, learning boundaries. But it's seriously probably what I'm working on the most right now, because those boundaries are how I can get to a place where I can really protect my peace and really focus on what I do want. Without those boundaries there, for the life of me, like, I can't, you're never going to get there. But yeah, I totally forgot where I was going. I think I started to go on a tangent, and I need you to like bring me back.
Yeah, that's great. That's fantastic. I think I feel like I need to comment on this, because I know that there are like specific questions that I can ask to you and the other gals inside the story that make you just want to strangle me. Like, you hate when I ask these questions. And that is one of them, right? Like, if you don't know where you're going, how are you going to know when you get there? If you don't know what it is that you do want, you're never going to get there. You're never going to get what you want if you don't know it.
One of the most frustrating questions.
And this also goes to show why the story is a lifetime program, right? Because what you can have these questions asked to you 1,000 times before whatever protective mechanisms that your mind has created around you will allow you to go in there and actually look at it and play with it. And so this process takes time, and this unwinding takes time, and this peeling the onion takes time, and it's never done. So yes, it's fantastic that you can acknowledge, like, okay, it took a long time before I actually knew how to answer that question. It took a long time before I could stop looking at what is it that I don't want. Ask a stepmom what she doesn't want. She'll talk to you for 15 hours. Ask her what she does want. And we're like, I don't fucking know. Not this though. Right.
Yeah.
Just no, it's not this.
Yeah. Really.
So to circle back to where I'm curious, or what I'm curious about is, and to be able to get to this place where you're able to identify what it is that you do want. What have been the resources that you have invested your time and your energy into to be able to get to a place where you are in fact healed enough and your nervous system is regulated enough to allow yourself to kind of dream into these spaces and rest in these places that maybe were not accessible to you this time last year?
Um, I would say learning what mindfulness means. I think that's maybe I probably have a few number ones. They're all up there together. It's like another number one, like mindfulness. That's something that I've learned that's helped me. Also, trying to accept what you cannot change. Like, I can't stress that enough. So there's a series of things that I would have otherwise never had before starting, becoming part of the story, and having all those tools and resources. And then I've now gotten to a place where I also, I talk about therapy and stuff with it. I've got a therapist. I have my husband and I, now have a couples therapist. That's some huge advice I would give, to anybody, is just talk about therapy from the get-go and then find a couples therapist. Absolutely. I mean, just, you don't even have to have a problem. Just do it. Just do it. You'll see what happens. But really, I've learned in the story to let go. Do I always let go? No. And we're not all going to. I mean, it's you're never going to reach perfection, but I've reached a place where I can know that no matter what, that everything's going to be okay, and that I have all these tools and resources to lean on. Yeah, I mean, I think I'm still like floating out to sea here on my tangents, but yeah, I mean, that's kind of where I'm at.
Okay, amazing.
No.
If you could give yourself, as a brand new stepmom, or give another stepmom like your number one piece of advice, what would that be?
Again, that brings me back to I don't have that number one piece other than, I guess same thing for me. It's just accept what you cannot change. Be open to perspective. Honestly, I really feel like if you talk to your mom friends about, what it looks like to be in their shoes, what they worry about, what they struggle with. I've got a best friend who is a mom, but is also in a step family dynamic. And, we are each other's soundboards, and we're both in a place of healing and have our own, methods. I have the coaching and meditation and, all that mindfulness practice and stuff. And she has her own, and we really lean on each other for support, amongst the work that we're doing, together and stuff. But, learn to let go. Just stop being angry if your stepkids coming in and waking you up on a Saturday morning, jumping in a bed, really just grinds your gears, or just like leaves you, gets you in this place where you're now like feeling all this resentment for, my privacy is being, compromised and stuff. Like, get your ass up before the kids do. You know what I mean? Like, you have a choice. Like, stop living, just let go. Like, stop living in that thought loop of anger and not feeling like you're in control. You're definitely in control.
Mm-hmm. Let go and have a great support system. Friends don't let friends, stepmom alone. We can't do it alone.
Yes. Oh, really? I mean, having the girls in the step queen community and stuff, just knowing that they're there, really has helped me so much too. And I just love them all for who they are and all their different stories. Yeah, we all have a story, and they're not all the same, but we all kind of come together in this like melting pot of it. Just somehow, even though all of our stories are different, we all go through the same shit.
Yeah, we sure do. Lisa May, is there anything else that you want to share with our listeners today? Don't people please. Ask yourself if being understanding is really serving you. Perfect. Also put that on your mirror.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being here and having this chat with me today, and for being so vulnerable and sharing so courageously. I know that your story is so powerful for so many folks to hear, and I am so grateful that you were able to do that for us and for them today. So thank you for your time. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being a member of our community. It's been such a pleasure to watch you blossom since meeting you. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I'm so grateful. So excited for this opportunity. This is awesome.
I wanted to let you know about a special online mini training that I'm offering for free for a limited time. It's called Peace, Love, Stepmom. And not to toot my own horn, but beep, beep, it's pretty freaking awesome. Peace, Love, Stepmom will give you the exact steps to take in order to create more harmony in your stepfamily, without feeling like you have to walk on eggshells or bite your tongue or ignore your own needs just to keep the peace. Because if you are listening to this, then chances are pretty good that you know there's a big difference between not fighting and actually feeling peaceful. To enroll in Peace, Love, Stepmom and get immediate access to this incredible online course, head to peacelovestepmom.com and sign up. It's totally free. You don't want to miss it. So go to peacelovestepmom.com to enroll and get immediate access. I hope this episode got your wheels turning and showed you just how powerful you are. I would invite you to take 30 seconds and tap subscribe to this podcast. When you subscribe to the podcast, then rest assured you will never miss an episode. And in no time, spinning your wheels will be a thing of the past. Thank you for listening and subscribing. And if you enjoyed this episode, it would mean the absolute world to me if after you subscribed, you jumped on over and left me a 5-star review, and better yet, a written review. I am on a mission to let every mom and stepmom know that you can create the life of your dreams. And I need your help to change the world. The world needs us. Thank you so much for subscribing and leaving me a 5-star review. I will see you next week. For more behind the scenes action and to get really up close and personal with me and our beautiful step family, jump on over to Instagram and follow me at The Step Queen. Don't be shy, send me a DM, tag me in your posts, tag me in your stories, let me know what you're up to and what about the podcast has been blowing your mind. I cannot wait to get to know you better, and Instagram is my jam. I love you so much. I love you so much. Make it rain, girlfriend.